Hello and welcome to another episode on Maritime Radar. The disruption to global supply chains from Houthi attacks on Red Sea shipping could drive up inflation and raise the prices of essential commodities such as oil and gas, posing problems for import-dependent African countries with a large trade deficit. Countries like Egypt, Ghana, Ethiopia, and Nigeria are already struggling with rising prices and Nigeria's food scarcity. These attacks have prompted many of the world's largest freight companies to avoid passing through the Red Sea and Suez Canal, prompting them to reroute their ships around the Cape of Good Hope. These elongated reroutes, which takes up to 30 to 40 days, are caused by the global disruption and it hurts trade. Assessing the impact the global trade disruption will have on the global supply chain and the food security worries it brings to Africa are some of the issues that will be on the front burner on today's show. The disruption in international trade has also become a source of worry as it impacts the shipping business in Africa. The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, says trade through the Suez Canal has decreased by 42% over the last 3 months, and the cost of shipping has skyrocketed. Therefore, the Nigerian government needs to take a comprehensive and multifaceted approach to address the challenges posed by these disruptions in global shipping routes, which have serious economic, security, and environmental applications. Areas to explore include adopting close collaboration with the private sector and international partners to effectively mitigate the impact. Before we get further into today's lineup on the program, let's find out the latest in maritime news.
The Nigerian Navy has deployed 7 ships and 2 helicopters to provide effective maritime search and rescue services on Nigeria's waters. The Flag Officer Commanding FOC Western Naval Command Rear Admiral Mustafa Hassan flagged off the operation codenamed Exercise Swift Response on board the Nigerian Navy ship NNS KAGA. The deployment included other facilities and a patrol vessel of the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. This exercise involves the deployment of suitable naval assets equipped for maritime disaster management operations. He added that the exercise is aimed at contributing to the safety of lives at sea in Nigeria's maritime environment and the Gulf of Guinea by providing prompt and timely response to maritime accidents. Hassan further stated that it would also serve as an opportunity to evaluate the command's disaster management capabilities and add value to the Chief of Naval Staff's aspiration for improved operational readiness of the Nigerian Navy. The exercise would involve the training of personnel in the new tactic of triangulating and prosecuting rogue vessels at sea. The Nigerian Ports Authority (NPA) says it plans to generate about 629.89 revenue in 2024 while looking for a 200 billion naira loan from Afrexim Bank and the United Kingdom Export Finance to address infrastructural deficits at the nation's gateway. The NPA's Managing Director, Mohammed Bello Koko, disclosed this in Abuja while defending the agency's budget before the House Committee on Ports and Harbours, putting NPA's expenditure in 2024 at 464.32 billion naira, operating expenses as 212.03 billion naira, and capital expenditure at 252.29 billion naira. He further stated that part of the main thrust of NPA's 2024 budget is the urgent need to rehabilitate, reconstruct, and moderate the dilapidated port infrastructure. The chairman, House Committee on Ports and Harbours, Nolin Naji, noted that the committee would need to visit some of the dilapidated port facilities, adding that the House of Representatives is very serious about budget defense. The Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Adegboyega Oyetola, has said that the federal government has promised to give the Nigerian Ports Authority (NPA) necessary backing to address the underutilization of ports and other national assets at the eastern part of the country. Speaking during the commissioning of a road project, Oyetola noted the 6 mooring boats used to safely berth and unberth vessels were the federal government's way of further enhancing the security and safety of the maritime space. He pointed out that the issues concerning the potential of ONE have always dominated his correspondence with the NPA. He acknowledged that his visit has further convinced him that so much more can be achieved if more investment is made in port infrastructure, such as is being done with the over 1 billion naira worth of reconstruction and rehabilitation in the ports, including One, which is at its conclusive stage. As part of its strategies to drive service efficiency and contribute revenue to the federal government, the Nigerian Shippers Council (NSC) has set August 2024 for full paperless operations. NSC Executive Secretary and Chief Executive Officer Pius Akuta disclosed this during a retreat, noting that the agency remains determined to make significant contributions to the development and implementation of a national policy on marine and blue economy. Akuta further stated that the implementation of the KPI signed earlier holds the key to achieving several significant deliverables like streamlining port operations, enhancing logistics, and facilitating seamless trade to enhance port operations. In addition, the establishment of inland dry ports and vehicle transit areas is crucial for efficient cargo movement, as well as the deployment of an enterprise content management system to drive set goals. It is also expected that the implementation of the integrated customs tariff nomenclature will aid the agency's revenue generation drive.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Maritime Radar. The conflict in the Middle East adds to existing concerns about global shipping since the current Russia-Ukraine war broke out in February 2022. Sailing in the Red Sea, the Somalia Basin of the Horn of Africa, and the Suez Canal account for 12% of global trade flows, including 30% of global container traffic, which has become a nightmare. The global supply chain disruptions, extended voyage durations, and potential delays in cargo delivery could disrupt global supply chains. Industries relying on just-in-time inventory systems may face challenges, and businesses might need to reassess and adapt their logistics strategies. Building economic resilience should include encouraging businesses to make their supply chain more robust by adopting flexible logistics strategies. In this chat with Dr. Obiara Madu, chairman of Multimix Group, he speaks on the impact of the trade disruption on the shipping in Africa, delays in the supply chain, and the looming food crisis. Stay with us. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Let's start this conversation looking at the global supply chain, which will face additional pressures this year due to the security crisis seen in the Red Sea. There are existing challenges already we have in the supply chain and logistics. So what can be done to mitigate this extra?
Well, let's look at the challenges first of all. The blockage of the Suez Canal was the major one. But there are, of course, other issues of security and the rest of them. But the blockage of the Suez Canal was massive because you had a lot of vessels lying there, because vessels had only two options. It's either you wait or you go the longer route through Cape of Good Hope and then coming up. So it disrupted the global supply chain. It's likely going to push up oil prices. Of course, there's going to be scarcity of commodities in some African countries. The Suez Canal is the most important shipping route in international trade. That is the route through which goods come from Asia into Europe. The whole world doesn't trade through that very particular route. There are other canals, Panama Canal and the rest of them. But the point is that in terms of volume, the Suez Canal alone does about 20% of the entire shipping. In fact, I think in 2023, it did about 1 billion tons of goods. So it's a very, very, so the fact that there was a challenge there has disrupted supply chain globally, completely. I mean, oil prices is going to be affected because of the route. Every other thing, manufactured goods, other commodities for the house are also going to be affected, particularly in some African countries. So Egypt has a responsibility, of course, in their own interest, because their income was affected within the period. But other people who suffered as a result of that were cargo owners, ship owners, insurance companies. Because, I mean, you are not carrying goods that ought to take 4 or 5 days to get to where they are going. And then you go through Cape of Good Hope and do about between 13 and 15 days. So if you have things that are perishable, then it's not likely going to get to destination still being good for consumption. It's like the devil, between the devil and the deep blue sea. Because if you want to wait, you may wait for too long. If you want to go through the other distance, you will have to spend a lot more money. You know, fuel is the most expensive cost in running a vessel. So you know what it means now to do another 15 days or so. So I think it's just about to see how, I mean, since 1860 something that the Suez Canal was done. So I don't know about the possibility of expansion. But one thing that needs to be done is maintenance.
To avoid attacks, you know, these global shipping companies have avoided the Suez Canal and using the Cape of Good Hope, just as you mentioned, which is an elongated trip, looking at about 30 to 40 days, according to a report. Then which comes with an obvious cost in shipping. Do you foresee a decline in international trade and shipment? Then on the other hand, you also mentioned the effect on shippers. So what do you think is the direct impact of this? Is it the shippers or the final consumers?
Well, it's everybody. Everybody, in the sense that the shippers, because of the blockade, some goods are unable to leave.
Especially perishable goods.
Exactly. They are unable to leave, so the shippers are affected. The ship owners are affected because they are either waiting or they are bearing the cost. I don't see you increasing the price of shipping while you are on sea. So that is it. Then, of course, for the consumers at some locations, like Uganda, Tanzania, and these East African countries, of course, those goods, their prices will go up because of availability. So everybody is actually affected. That's why something must be done to ensure that it does not happen.
Do you think this disruption can bring about the decline in international trade and shipment?
Of course, when shipments are not made, they cannot be counted as part of the global trade that has been done. So the less the shipment, the slower the global trade.
You know, the global sea trade is the most efficient and most cost effective. So do you think that we have other ways we to be able to move goods aside from using the sea trade?
Yeah, looking at alternatives. Do
we really have them?
It will take a while to find some, because you can imagine 3, 4, 5 days, and then you are doing 15. So it will take a while before, right at the moment, Suez Canal is the shortest, the most profitable, and the busiest.
Okay, with this rerouting also around the African Standard Team, there are also some temporary. They are temporary because we believe that looking at the impact, something is going to be done about it. So I see it as a temporary opportunity. So for the African market. So what are the opportunities that you see that this has created in the African market, and how do you think they should take advantage of this?
Thank you. Like I said, it's a mixed bag for the continent. The East African countries are affected negatively, but the West African countries and other countries along the coastline are affected positively, in the sense that ships that were not supposed to be coming through their route now pass through. So what does that mean? Higher tonnages of goods. But the question is, how prepared are they? Seaports in Africa are below standards.
Okay.
So the only way you can take advantage of it is the fact that you have to bring your facilities up to date. So I can tell you that so many African ports and countries will miss this short-term opportunity which you mentioned, because it's not going to be forever.
Yes.
Even the shippers will even be looking for a solution. They will be ready to contribute if only they can find a solution.
Yes.
So which means that very soon those extra things will no longer be there. But the fact is that it tells you, if you look at ports in Africa, the port of Durban and 2 or 3 others, the rest of they are not doing fine, and they are impeding global trade. Part of the reason why we are not trading with ourselves in Africa is the issue of ports and the rest of them. Part of the reason we're not trading among, we can't, because exports will be affected on that route. Exports will be affected on that route too. So the vessel owners, the cargo owners, everybody is affected. So I think together they have to go and find a solution, because it's all about competitiveness.
Yes.
Trade is about competitiveness.
Yes, yes.
You become uncompetitive the moment you avoid the Suez Canal and decide to go through the Cape of Good Hope. So that is it. So there is an opportunity, temporary as it is, but the fact is that
Africa might not take.
We need to invest. There's no free lunch any longer. You have to invest to be able to reap the opportunities that are here.
We are due for a break. When we come back, we'll be looking at the consequences, because you mentioned ports, the consequences of this disruption on port congestion and on logistics supply chain. But that will be after this short break. Please stay with us.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms. News Central, Africa First.
If you're just joining us, this is Maritime Radar, and I still have with me Dr. Obiara Madu. He is the chairman of Multimedia Group. Before we went on that break, you were talking about ports. So I want you to look at the consequences of this disruption on port congestion and logistics and supply chain.
Yes, the consequences of port congestion is very, very high. Rise in the cost of goods, supply chain disruptions, and delays, even damages on goods and the rest of them. These are the consequences. And the ports, it brings us again to the issue of Logistics Performance Index, which the World Bank does every year. The World Bank is pointing at, if we follow that very particular index, it is easy to improve, because you see what you score on each of the parameters, which includes access to the port. It also includes access out of the port. Then, of course, it includes the logistics infrastructure, the physical logistics infrastructure. It also includes the soft infrastructure, which is the quality of service in the port. Then it includes the timeliness of doing transactions. All these things are the things that are actually affected. Then finally, I think the ease of bringing goods in and taking goods out. You can see that every parameter, we are not doing well. Of course, the last 10 is always African countries.
Another source of worry that this global disruption has brought about is food security. So, and if this persists, what kind of challenge do you think it will be on African countries? And how do you think it can be better managed? Looking at inflation, looking at food scarcity already experienced in Nigeria.
Well, I guess our food security issues are not coming from the ports. As food security issues, we know why. We have arable land that we're not cultivating. We have insecurity, farmers can't go to farm. But if we're talking about like the East African countries where there is scarcity,
but here we are import dependent.
We are import dependent, but most of what comes to us do not use that route.
Okay.
That's why I say it's a mixed bag.
Okay.
Some countries are benefiting,
okay,
like the West African countries or the East African countries. So as our food security challenge is a different ballgame altogether. Okay. But in countries that
but
are
the inflation
negatively,
that we see,
the inflation we see is as a result of a whole lot of things,
okay,
which includes the foreign exchange rates, which includes the removal of subsidy and the rest of them. But for the East African countries that are negatively affected, but there is scarcity,
okay, because
things are no longer coming in the way they were coming. So as a result, food security is threatened.
Okay.
So their own food security issues and ours are different in altogether.
Okay.
Because our own, we are not disrupted.
Okay.
The only thing we have now is inability to import as a result of the foreign exchange rates.
Okay.
Because of the rate at which duty is paid, some importers even had to abandon the goods when they check and find out that the duty they will pay is higher than what they used to bring the goods. They will leave they left the goods at the port until government made some adjustments. So that is the issue. Our own food security is different from their food security. Their own can easily be tackled because as soon as the canal is open and the goods start to flow, their own is, but our own cannot ease because the canal has opened.
Okay, critically examining these economic challenges this disruption has brought, what practical steps should African government take to mitigate the potential effects, especially on economy? Yes, you have said that different African countries are not feeling the pain. They are feeling the pain differently, the economy, but it's affecting the economy of Africa that is not already stable. So what do you think should be done now?
Well, it will affect planning.
Okay.
It will affect planning because it creates uncertainty which affects planning. So it affects companies, it affects countries. The other thing is that AU, which is African Union, need to come into it.
Okay.
Either put pressure on Egypt,
okay, to
invest more money to avoid such situation happening. That is about the maximum they can do. Okay. While individual countries and individual companies make adjustments through planning and the rest of them. But the most important thing would be to put pressure on Egypt to invest money because they're earning money. Because I think the amount they say they need to, is it expand it or something, it's about 8-something million. That's less than what they earn in 1 year on it. That's less than what they earn in 1 year. So it is to put pressure on them to do the needful so that the place can flow.
If Africa has not made strategic impact or progress with AfTA, do you see them making progress with this?
You see, in terms of AfTA, the policy has been made, an agreement has been signed, but that's only the beginning. The intentionalities of countries, how much has your country exported under AfTA? That is the issue. That was why I wasn't excited when it started, because I knew it would take a long while. It will take a long while. You don't have an export culture. You don't have a good relationship with some other countries. You are closing border, and then you'll be citing AfTA as one of the things to move the economy forward? I don't think so.
So with that, so that's what I'm asking with that. How do you think the solution you're preferring to talk to Egypt to expand that will work?
It is even in the interest of Egypt. I think nobody needs to talk
So
to
even
them. Even.
Okay. Okay.
But I'm saying that if they are reluctant about doing something,
Okay.
the AU can put pressure because of the African countries that are affected negatively. They can put pressure on them.
So coming home and looking at shippers in Nigeria, what do you think they should be doing now, or the government of Nigeria or the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy be doing as a result of maybe preparation or making input, looking at these disruptions before we go?
The disruption is bringing us benefits.
Okay.
As much as it is a disruption, it's actually disruption that makes a company or a nation move more forward now. So it means that there are benefits that are coming into our ports as a result of this disruption.
And we are not prepared for it.
And we are not prepared for it. So what government and the rest of them should be doing will be to invest money and ensure that such opportunities are taken. That is the thing. To invest and regulate properly. If we do that, then that very opportunity will not pass us by. Because, I mean, we are here and Togo has been declared the logistics hub for West Africa. So it shows how unprepared we are.
I must thank you very much for your thoughts and time on the show, as we hope that something will be done concerning these global disruptions, so that there will be free flow of trade and shippers. We continue to do their business as usual.
Yeah.
It's been Dr. Obiora Madu. He is the chairman, Multi-Mix Group. Many thanks again for your time and thoughts.
My pleasure.
And that's our show this week. I hope our assessment of the global trade disruption and its inflationary impact on Africa was impactful. Join us every week on Maritime Radio as we explore potentials that will ensure the development of the maritime sector in Africa. You can also expect the latest in global and local maritime news plus industry insight right here. I'm Norma Obiasola. Many thanks for your time and see you again next week.